Hi, and welcome back to another episode of CUPE. Are you a union member? Wish you were in a union, an ally, or someone who loves learning about progressive movements? Then you're in the right spot. My name is Brianna Plummer. I use she, her pronouns, and together with my co host Mo Al we are here to kick ass for the working class, one podcast at a time. To hear more episodes, look for the CUPE anywhere you stream or download podcasts. And for feedback or future episode ideas, don't forget you can always email us at cupecast@cupe.on.ca. That is CUPECAST@cupe.on.ca. Today we're diving in once again into this discussion about bargaining, but this time with a focus on building stronger locals.
That's right, Brianna. In March 2025, CUPE National held a Building Strong Locals conference in Montreal. It was an opportunity for CUPE members from across the country to gather in one place to build their skills on member mobilization and engagement, as well as to have conversations about defending public services against right wing threats and bargaining to win. Today, we're joined by Chloe Bell, Jessica Lyons, and Layla Miskeen, three individuals who will share their thoughts and perspectives on building strong locals. Stay tuned for another great episode. You're listening to QPcast, episode 43, Stronger Together.
Welcome back. It's been a while. I hope all you listeners are doing well as we start to transition into spring and finally warmer weather. How are you, Mo?
I'm all right. Enjoying the luxurious life and tropical weather of Toronto, Ontario. Lots of stuff happening in the world of politics, whether
Yes,
it's globally or here domestically. And I know we're still on the verge of a federal election.
yes,
We have undergone a provincial election, and blink, and very soon we'll be at another municipal election. So here we
that
go.
is
It's gonna be
true.
fun times for us.
Yes, I just also want to let our listeners know the day Mo and I are recording this episode, the election has not officially happened yet. But by the time this episode comes out, the election will have been over. So we don't know what the results will be, but we're hoping for the best. But before we dive into today's episode, let's take a moment to inform our listeners about the Building Strong Locals Conference. If you are unable to attend, you're probably wondering, what is the Building Strong Locals Conference? As we mentioned in our introduction, the Building Strong Locals Conference was a conference held by CUPE National, and it took place from March 3rd to March 6th, 2025.
In preparation for the federal election and ongoing bargaining that is happening with QP locals and their employers, this conference was attended by union leaders and activists alike to sharpen skills and make their locals and QP stronger and ready to take on the fights ahead.
This sounds like a conference for CUPE members who are definitely interested in making their locals stronger. I was unfortunately unable to attend this conference. My local was bargaining at the time, but I heard attendees got to hear from a range of people, ranging from journalists, elected officials, grassroots organizers, and of course, CUPE members.
Yeah, a lot of us, myself included, I wasn't able to attend that conference, but I heard from across the board, positive feedback,
Mhm.
overwhelmingly positive feedback about that conference, and a lot of members and leaders have enjoyed attending it and listening to each other, skill sharing, etc. And I think it's a conference that was due for its time.
Yes, I agree.
Obviously, at a time of political turmoil, a provincial election was happening in Ontario at that moment. Um, the trade war was escalating,
Mhm.
and we were facing a federal election. So I'm so excited to hear more about this.
So am I. Just to let folks know, we'll be joined by three panelists. We said this in our introduction: Chloe Bell, Jessica Lyons, and Layla Miskeen, who led the Lessons from Ontario in Building Strong Locals panel. So, this particular panel focused on how CUPE leaders work to organize a supermajority of their members into action to win improvements in bargaining. We hope that hearing from them and hearing their stories and hearing the tactics that they use would help you and your locals be more prepared for bargaining. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back and we'll be joined by Chloe, Jessica, and Layla.
All right, so we are joined by Chloe Bell, Jessica Lyons, and Layla Miskeen. Chloe Bell is the first female vice president at CUPE Local 2361 and a caretaker at Western University in London, Ontario. She was an active member and organizer in her local's last bargaining campaign and its 7 week successful strike. Jessica Lyons is the head steward at CUPE Local 5399 and a registered nurse at one of Ontario's first and busiest supervised consumption sites. Her drive for organizing comes from growing up during the resistance to the Harris government's attacks on public services in Ontario and is inspired by the incredible wins achieved by ordinary working people organizing together every day. Leila Miskeen is a national staff representative out of the Ontario Regional Office. She's an immigrant who arrived in Canada as an international student, which is when she first became a CUPE member. Leila is a believer in the power of collective worker action to challenge the constraints of capitalism, dismantle oppressive systems, and drive social justice locally and globally. And I will add, she is one of the coolest, or the coolest Moroccan that I know.
Welcome, Chloe, Jessica, and Layla to CUPEcast. First off, may I ask, how are you today?
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Like the weather is great. It's sunny outside. It looks like we are over and done with winter and the snow. Hopefully, yes, hope. And for our listeners just tuning in, Chloe, Jessica, and Layla are going to share highlights from the panel that they did at the building. Totally forgot this conference. Sorry. At the Building Strong Locals conference in Montreal. But this is going to be more of a conversation. So they're going to just share highlights from the panel, but also we'll ask them questions as we go along. We'll also leave links to the presentation deck in our show notes, so you can follow along as we have this conversation, or if you just want to take a quick peek at the presentation that they presented at the conference. So first question is for Jessica and Chloe. Can you just tell us a little bit about your local, the type of members that are at that local, and some of the key issues that emerges from the workplace?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having us and letting me share CUPE 2361 successful strike action. Our local represents around 330 tradesmen, caretakers, landscape services, and arena operators at Western University in London, Ontario. The purposeful dismantling of our post-secondary institutions through privatization combined with rapid inflation created an unsustainable working environment and an agitation among our members. Our local leadership saw this opportunity and seized it to build supermajority with our members for strike readiness and to win a fair contract. We ended up winning the largest wage increase in the university sector in Ontario, with some of our members winning roughly 25% over 4 years. This was done through our coordinated bargaining and strike action. It was an extensive collective, an extensive collective commitment. For context, our members went from campaigning to decertify in 2021 to having a 99% strike mandate vote in 2024, with 90% of our members participating in that vote. This was possible through that intentional planning and organizing for over a year before we started.
Yeah, I have a lot of similar themes to bring up. CUPE 5399 is members work at a community health center in the East End of Toronto. We have approximately 130 workers providing healthcare and social services. And when the contrast of sort of the before picture before we embarked on an organizing campaign around bargaining is that workers were facing a lot of the same struggles that Chloe outlined: struggle to pay bills, worsened physical and mental health, decreased workplace safety, and a really serious understaffing and overwork crisis. And yeah, we were just in a really, really bad situation. And when we decided and carried out our plan to organize a high participation bargaining campaign, we were able to achieve a wage increase of 13.5% over 3 years. And we achieved a living wage special wage adjustment that brought workers up immediately to a living wage of $25.05 an hour, in some cases representing up to a 33% immediate wage increase. We won a bunch of working condition improvements, things that we hadn't had before and that are maybe more rare in our sector, such as a pregnancy and parental leave top up, and many paid leave improvements like vacation and personal time, etc. So and a much more present and engaged membership too. So more people wanting to become executive officers and stewards and engage and have higher amount of familiarity with their collective agreement.
Amazing. Thank you both for that and for all the work that you've done. Uh, let's switch gears a little bit. Leila, as a staff representative at CUPE, can you tell us a bit more about the locals that you support?
Certainly. So, in my assignments, I have a majority school board members, so education workers. I represent the CUPE 4299, and these are the workers out of the Catholic school board, French Catholic school board in Windsor. I have another French Catholic school board in Toronto, the North York area. And it's QP 4340 and then QP 1328. It is the largest Catholic school board local in the country, the Toronto Catholic School Board. And I have a bit of everything else. So a group of long-term care workers, community agency, and two newly organized groups with QP, childcare workers in Toronto, they're French daycares.
Okay, thank you. So next question, it will go to all three of you, and I will start with Chloe, and then we'll go to Jessica and then Leila. Can you tell us, because we know that bargaining, it's a multi-step process. So can you just tell us, how did you get your locals ready for bargaining? I know a lot of members have this conception that, at the bargaining table, it's usually just the executives of the local that engages with the employer and kind of makes the decision. But we often know that it's the members also have to be involved in the process and have to be supportive throughout the bargaining process for it to be successful. So my question is, just tell us a little bit about, how did you get your members ready for bargaining?
Thank you for that question. As I mentioned earlier, with our extensive collective commitment, part of that was an ever-developing commitment to constant reassessment and accountability at every step. That really started with redefining our union. Our members, like myself, were largely uninvolved at the time, before the last round of negotiations, let alone even thinking of striking. For me, it took always being ready to learn and reminding myself that I'm making a difference not only in my life and in my coworkers' lives. And from having members wanting to decertify to getting this supermajority, started with a lot of our structure tests, a lot of on the ground conversations. We had to assess, where can we best meet our members and where Are they seeing themselves or not seeing themselves in our workplace and in our union? Over a year before we went on strike, our local leadership made a commitment to a slow burn campaign, and that was rooted in maximizing member engagement. To connect with each and every member, we had to find a way to reach across all shifts, all capacities of campus. It's a really large place. And while 330 members does not necessarily sound like a lot in comparison to some, trying to have those one-to-one conversations where you're not lecturing somebody, you're not meeting people who are already coming to you at your GMMs, but rather going and finding people who have a hard time connecting or finding our meetings accessible. And these conversations are what we referred to as structured organizing conversations. This was done through training that our Mobilization Engagement Committee, a group that we put together using identification of local leaders. That's where I came in. And we use that to create not just a sense of engagement and community, but a shared strategic plan so that we could collect the priorities of all of our members, as well as ask them to take action for these priorities. Our plan to win was one that can be shared with all levels of our membership and is where our leadership is consolidated. These conversations, they take a lot of practice and constant reassessment to see where you're meeting your members. A lot of times these took place in lunchrooms and what we call slop rooms or supply closets or hallways even, but it was a way to get a democratic understanding of our membership and where we wanted to go in bargaining. And throughout bargaining, it was having those structure tests repeating so that it wasn't all right, we got the key information, we're going to go talk to the employer, don't worry about it. It was keeping the ball in the conversation going and asking them to take action themselves. So we did a supermajority button test, and we did a photo petition banner, or excuse me, a hand signature petition banner to present to the employer, so our members could see themselves being involved and taking action with their coworkers as well. I think that might be all.
All right, Jessica, same question for you. What did you do to get your members ready for bargaining?
There we are. We learned from our first round of bargaining, which was constrained by Bill 124 and wage restraint legislation and the pandemic, and turned out by contrast very poorly, that we had to make a strategic plan and commit to a very serious member engagement to build up very high participation. So because we knew that bargaining power isn't really at the table, but it's in worker unity and our willingness to create a crisis for the employer. So as a local, we took that seriously, and we knew that it would require us to be ready to strike. So we trained as a group in legendary labor organizer Jane McAlevy's organizing methods, and every step of our campaign, those methods are reflected. And so the first step is to build a very large contract action team, which is volunteer members from all different parts of the membership, different sites, and receive training to have these same kind of conversations that Chloe's mentioning, these one-on-one structure organizing conversations, so that we're helping people understand how the remedies to the issues that they are experiencing in the workplace require collective action in order to resolve. And so this is motivating people towards action and increasing their unity with their coworkers around this credible plan to win. So that's what we did, and we did a number of structure tests that were similar to what Chloe's describing. We did a supermajority petition, and we used the strike vote as a structure test, so gathered pledges in advance to vote yes to a strike mandate, and received escalating more participation with each structure. So we know how strong we are. We know that we're building strength over time, and we're able to measure that very, very precisely. So we know exactly how much power we have, and then we are able to reflect that at the bargaining table. The bargaining team is integrated within the contract action team. So these aren't separate initiatives happening in different spaces. These are a unified group who know what is happening. And so the strength that the bargaining committee is able to bring to the table is based entirely on the strength of the membership within those structure tests. So it's a real reflection of power, and it results in like immediate impacts on the offers at the table in terms of like what you see, how the employer moves with their offers. I can leave it there for now.
Layla, it's all you.
Yeah, it's it's inspiring to hear the stories from Chloe and Jessica. And when we do this work, that's our main goal, is to get locals to a point where they can demonstrate their power, because it's what gives them the chances for a successful bargaining round. But what I would like to share as a staff with CUPE is this local readiness campaign and some recommended practices for it based on what we learned here in Ontario. And before I start, I want to acknowledge the resource and recommend to all the listeners to go and check it out. It's called the Campaign Planning Handbook by Rob Fairley. And a lot of the work that Jess and Chloe talked about is mentioned in that Campaign Planning Handbook. It is available for free to download on laborcouncil.ca. And there is also a discussion paper that goes with it called Achieving a State of Readiness. So I'd recommend that you go and get it. You can get copies, digital copies, but you can also order paper copies from Labor Council. And based on that work done by Rob Fairley, a group of people in Ontario, they have been working together to develop this project. A lot of you might have heard of it already. It's called Building Power Initiative. And we want to learn from our struggles. This is one of the main goals of this work. We want to learn from the struggles. We want to apply these lessons that we learn to the current bargaining climate that's getting more and more hostile. And so I have a couple of recommendations to share. First, it would be to plan. So local leaders must develop a credible plan to win, as both Chloe and Jess have talked about, and they showed how they're local. They talked about, I think later on they can develop more on how they get to that. You need to plan your bargain campaign at least a year before the expiry of the CA. And the idea is to gradually raise the temperature in the workplace from a simmer to a boil, starting with low-risk workplace actions and escalating from there. I don't want to go too much into the details, but maybe if we have time later, I can go back and say more about that recommendation. The second one, which is, it's mostly a reminder. It's basically, we know from the history of the labor movement that the art of persuasion is not enough. It's not just about convincing our opponents on the other side of the table with good arguments, good research, etc. We are in a power struggle. And that means that we can only win by mobilizing our members in large numbers to demonstrate their collective power. And I can't stress that enough. And the third recommendation is to increase the disruption costs for the employer. The concession cost is what it costs to the employer to give us what we're asking for. The disruption costs, on the other hand, it's what we can make it cost them if they don't give us what we want. So our disruption cost is our leverage, and we have to make sure that it's very high. And just a side note, a strike is a tactic. It is not the be all and all. The whole point of strike readiness is to create pressure on the employer. And even workers without the legal rights to strike can create pressure. And we've seen successful examples of workers in healthcare who were successful in demonstrating that. And the fourth recommendation from the Building Power Initiative is to create a culture of plan, act, evaluate within your local union. It goes in a cycle. You first invest in planning, and it's not planning with the intention of checking a box. It's having the local leaders getting together, committing to spend time together, having the difficult conversations, with investment through meaningful prep work, and going through those challenging discussion, doing a power analysis within the local, the bargaining climate, being very involved so that their plan to win comes as an informed plan, but also when there is a shared commitment from everybody around the table to that plan. We go ahead and action our plan, but a step that gets forgotten about quite often, which is the evaluation. We have to reconvene and sit down and see what worked well for us, what didn't work, why didn't we achieve the goals that we did, in a meaningful and purposeful way, meaning that it's not gonna be criticizing people or the different leaders who were doing the work, but we're looking at the weaknesses of our plan and how we can make it stronger, and just adopting this method all the way. Because it increases first the teamwork, the shared accountability, and it helps create a high functioning leadership group.
Thanks, Leila. I wanted to follow up with you on that. Chloe and Jess both mentioned structure tests as part of their tactics or as part of their plans. Now, in your role as staff representative, can you tell us a bit more about how you support your locals to conduct structure tests as part of the state of readiness?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes in with the first thing that we do with our locals, which is the planning session, the local readiness planning. In those sessions, we're talking in our practice, and what we've seen working really well with locals is committing to 2 days of planning. These 2 days are not back to back, but there's like a bit of space of 2 to 3 weeks in between, ideally. And the idea is the first day we spend it with the team talking about doing a power analysis within the workplace, doing a force field analysis of what's working for us, what's working against us. We get research to come in and give a presentation about the bargaining climate, the strengths and the weaknesses of the local leadership group as a team. And that's all we talk about. There is no planning that goes on the first day. And the idea is to have the leaders have all of these discussions and let the information sink in. There is often some follow-up to do and some more work to do in terms of research. So when we show up and we come in the second day, that's when we do the actual planning. And this way the plan is informed. And that's where we suggest, if we're go into bargaining, the idea is to start with structured texts that are low risk for the members. We want to gather data. We want to start the practice of having updated membership lists in their participation in these structure tests. So we have comms specialists within CUPE who help us basically implement whatever ideas we plan for. I can use the group, an example of the group that I work with, 1328, which is the Toronto Catholic group. They decided they wanted their members to be more involved. Violence in the workplace is one of their big issues. This is a school board local, and they decided to start a Violence is Not Our Job campaign. And they've been doing really great work. This was their first structure test in a very long time, and they're having members calling their members, talking to them about violence in the workplace, and they're tracking all of that, getting them to sign a petition, asking the employer to invest, to stop the cuts to staffing, etc. So they're implementing that structure test, but there is a team. The members are doing the work of organizing, having the one-on-one conversations, and the CUPE staff are like our amazing comms person, Shannon. She helps develop the content of the petition. She helps drafting the cost share to submit it to national. So all of those resources will be available to all locals. And what I would leave locals with, if this is work that you're interested in, all you need to do is talk to your national rep and be like, I heard about this building power initiative work. We would like us to get involved. Your national staff rep will know the team to reach out to, and there is a group of us. We just help each other. We go, usually we're talking about facilitation team of 2 people. So all you need to do is talk to your national rep, and we'll make sure that the rest happen.
Okay, thank you. Just because Layla spoke heavily about as a national rep, she supports her locals in terms of getting ready for bargaining and doing different tests and different campaigns as part of the readiness campaign. This question is for Jessica and Chloe. We could start with Jessica. What are some of the learnings that your local gained from doing structure tests and other tactics as part of your readiness campaign?
I think that what the biggest lesson that we learned is that when you do develop a strategic plan and you employ a method and you go through all of the steps and you are conducting structure tests and you're building that structure, you are building power. You're building worker power. And what you can achieve is going to surprise you. So I think, all of the steps are really important, and staying with the method is really important. And a few things that we didn't get a lot of opportunity to outline as really key pieces of a method that ties into to structure tests and to having a strategic plan is communication with members, not only through one-on-one conversations, but also through bargaining bulletins. So one piece that was a huge contrast for our members in this campaign was that we were committed to communicating within 24 hours after every bargaining session and detailing what was said and done and accomplished at each session. So there was no secrets, there was no closed bargaining. It was a transparent process in which members knew what had been gained, especially directly after their structure tests and actions that they had taken, and connected the gains that were made at the table to the actions that they had taken. And it improved their sense of belonging and ownership around those gains. So a commitment to that, and also these are opportunities to have membership meetings and have discussions and troubleshoot issues, and also correct rumors or gossip that the employer might be spreading, and also to prepare members for a little bit of the poison that they're going to hear from the employer so that they're prepared with an analysis of fear mongering, talking about layoffs or appealing to a sense of reason or guilting members for threatening to strike, etc., and fortifying them to be prepared that these are the tactics that are going to be tried against us, and so inoculating them to have that strength and resolve to stay united. And another piece is that we hadn't experienced, but that was a really huge developing for us, was participating in strike preparations in a very visible way. So engaging in an information picket and holding a rally outside of our workplace. And it was a very new experience to be visibly taking up space as a union, as union members at our workplace, was very empowering. And it also gave us an opportunity to engage with the community and neighbors around our work site, which was a huge benefit because, as Layla was talking about, the sort of exercises that you do in strategic planning, it's you learn, it's how to engage beyond just the membership, which absolutely the number one core I want to highlight. If you don't have a strong membership engaged and united, there's no point. But if you have that, your collateral power, you can increase, you can amplify by engaging with the community that is related to your workplace, whether it's neighbors or clients or students. That sort of increases your power and increases your leverage that you have for the gains that you want to make. So participating in those visible strike preparations was really empowering experience for a lot of members to experience, I can do this. I can march around in front of my workplace with a banner, with a sign. We're loud, we are proud. And I think that was a really important turning point for the membership too.
Sorry, just to clarify, that was a question regarding the evaluation process.
Yes. So a question around like some of the learnings you gain from doing structured tests and other tactics as part of your readiness campaign.
Perfect. Thank you. So in the evaluation process, I'd argue we learned the most about our membership and about our local leadership, because evaluation was required at every step of the way. And I think one of the most prominent things we learned from evaluating ourselves as leaders within our union and evaluating our members was, what does it mean to have built that trust and what do we do with it? We learned what fear actually looks like for our members. It's some people you think not coming to the lines or not participating in certain ways, but having evaluated not only the actions, but also the conversations that we've been having and tracking in our organized charting as well, we know that this is a representation of fear. We have members at this point now who've been on strike for 5-6 weeks. We're approaching 7, and this is real. This is their lives. It is a scary experience. And evaluating among our structure tests, what steps is fear motivating us as opposed to holding us back? How much can we ask of our members, not just to squash the fear, but rather turn it into fuel for strength and solidarity? For example, when our members were seeing just how much the employer is prepared to spend on private security and other measures, as opposed to how much they would have spent in concession costs and giving us the contract, it was rather eye-opening, because many of our members were scared that people think that we're just there to fight or that they don't care about their campus and community, which is not true. It's the whole reason why we're out there. And having the continued structured organizing conversations where we can not only validate and hear that fear, but address it. What can we do as a collective to prevent that fear from happening per se? Or for example, with our structured organizing tests, we are gradually escalating in risk, but also in our solidarity. Our sense of solidarity got stronger and stronger as we saw the employer taking more vicious and more tenacious union busting tactics But our members showed extreme perseverance as we evaluated this because we gave them the opportunity to not only share, but also get feedback. The training of the structured organizing conversations gave us that ability to share the bigger picture, not just from the bargaining table, but the way that our employer was coordinating with the city and with the mayor, and the way that that really played and amplified on those fears. So the best way we found to address them was we moved some of our pickets to City Hall and we started speaking with the mayor. We started addressing these fears head on and letting our members know, like, we set these priorities together at the beginning. We see that it is still a constant source of fear for some of our members, but it's not something that we're going to shy away from. And as leaders, it was really important because it allowed us to truly talk with our members and not dismiss them. Evaluation and escalation as to what was appropriate is what allowed us to have a rally that took over the intersection by City Hall and take the city streets surrounding as we rallied through, because we had continued that strength and escalation and didn't per se let it drop off. When we were doing each test, we knew that we had to keep pushing a little bit, or not pushing, excuse me, we knew we had to keep asking for a little bit more from our members each time. And as we saw each of us showing up for each other and for that action, the next one got easier. And one last point about evaluation is we learned where our members see themselves and where they want to see themselves in our union and in our campus community. Coming back from strike, we see how important not only our work is, but where we fit in our campus community. We have been showing up for our allies on campus, such as PSAC, other CUPE units, and they started showing up for us. And we want to keep that going. Right now, we have a threat of privatization with a third-party company the employer wants to pair with. And we're fortunate that we've kept evaluating and kept that allyship and solidarity going, so that we still have our members, even now, showing up for rallies and on-campus actions, because we are still continuing those structure tests even 6 months coming back from strike.
Thanks, Chloe. So I have a bit of a follow-up. Earlier, we touched on the subtopic of the supermajority. In your local, why was it important to achieve this? How did you go about it? And I'd also invite Jess and Layla to chime in.
So structured tests are a method that follow, excuse me, our method that allow us to measure both the level of democracy and participation in our local, or our rank and file. Oh my goodness, I forgot the question. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Can we repeat that, Moa?
Yeah. So earlier we spoke about the supermajority and why it's important for a local to achieve this. We just wanted to follow up and ask how you were able to achieve a supermajority and how it affected your actions. We also asked if Jess and Leila would want to chime in about the achievement of a supermajority.
So with having the some of our members campaigning to decertify in 2021, we were very unsure going into this round of bargaining of where our members were at with participation, and we knew it was important to start early because there were so many side conversations that we were hearing, and we started pretty low. We were fortunate to have a wage reopener in November of 2023, and that gave us the first opportunity of a low risk that gave us the opportunity of a low risk structure test. So we asked each and every member, not just those already involved, but to participate in a hand signature majority petition. It was a very visible action that had very low risk for majority of our members. And it was an opportunity not just to demonstrate to the employer that we were organizing, but to show our members and our community what it is like to participate in a collective action. We took the stage at an employer staff meeting where most members were gathered, as well as peers, bosses, directors, and HR, and presented our petition. It was extremely empowering for our members, and they felt not just that It was extremely empowering for our members. They felt strong and unified and didn't just understand their power as a construct. Excuse me, getting nervous at this point. Our members felt strong and unified. They understood their power beyond just a concept, but they actually were able to experience it. And this motivated our members to participate in further structure tests as well as our meetings going into bargaining, so they knew as we were planning, getting closer to before our collective agreement even expired, that these conversations were happening. And on top of this public solidarity, we had email chains going, we had union boards that were impossible to miss. And most of it was really trying to reach members who otherwise struggled to engage in these conversations, because even if they aren't as loud or outwardly active as some other members, they are just as important in their democracy and in their participation. We set goals of 70 to 80% for our structure tests, and we were able to hit them because we continued. Excuse me, I'm getting a little bit off track here. Member engagement was incredibly important for us because our members are on site every day. They are on campus, and that is a way for us to reach them. Being online for a lot of our hands-on jobs isn't going to get the same engagement as a conversation would, as an opportunity for them to wear a button or to show up on campus for a half-hour lunchtime rally. It was accessible ways for our members to give us what their priorities were, as well as engage with their community. Many of our members work with faculties or areas of campus that the rest of us don't, and we very much have connections and a sense of pride in where we work, and showing our members that that is what we are working for. We're not striking just to get a livable wage that we deserve, but we're striking because of our staffing crisis. We're striking for a safe and accessible campus for all of our students. And coming back from that strike, having that level of engagement and participation is incredibly important, because not just solidarity throughout our strike and keeping our picket strong, but coming back, knowing that we were going to rely on each other for that extended solidarity was really important as well.
Yeah, and Chloe actually really summarized it really well. I think the only thing I would add is, as she mentioned, as while members continue to see the results of their actions, like it falls on the mobilizing bargaining committee to link always whatever action that the members took with the results at the bargaining table. When there is a campaign and there is a petition going on for a specific issue and it pushes the agenda forward at the bargaining table, our members need to know that their action of like signing something, putting a button, etc., how is that impacting their team? And then they realize that they're contributing to winning, and it makes more commitment to being even more involved, because now these actions have direct results on like their working conditions in general. So I would like, this would be a very important point for me, and I think it has to be incorporated in the plan, act, evaluate, in the evaluation part, where you sit down and see, did we link whatever actions we were doing in petitions with the results to our members? Do they see it? Do they recognize it?
Yeah, I think of the core points have been covered. The only piece that I thought I would just color in a little bit more is that when you're running a structure test, and like for example a supermajority petition, one of the things that you're explaining to members is that um, you're linking their issues that they've identified are the biggest issues, and to the method and to the bigger plan to win. Yes, but you're also saying, and the reason why you're saying you're starting with something that appears so low risk. You're saying, we're not going to give this to the employer unless we achieve a majority of workers signing this. So it's not the 5 workers who, are going to think that they're, brave enough, or they, they'll do it. No, no, no. We won't do this unless we all do this. And so it's embedding the sense of collective power and this need for unity, that is the root of our power. And so you're carrying that forward in every, from the very beginning, so that when you're at the point of either almost being on the picket line like our local, or actually being there for many weeks like Chloe's local, you're reiterating that over and over again, that the level of strength you have is in that unity and in that super majority participation. Because if that starts to go down, you're losing power. And if you are tracking that participation very keenly, which you need to be, that that is how you know how much power you have, and it's really crucial.
Thank you all for your insights on supermajority. We just have a couple of more questions. So this question is open to all 3 of you. What are some of the biggest wins your local gained from going through this process?
So currently, like one of the locals I work with, as I mentioned earlier, 1328, they are in the process of doing their high participation campaign. They have set a goal of reaching a 60% participation in their petition. They're doing that work, and we're waiting for May to see the results, which is like them achieving that high majority, that majority participation. It's the first action that this local is doing in a while. So and we're already seeing the impact for now, although we haven't reached the goal yet, but the members are talking a lot more about the issues at the workplace, and especially that this board is might be facing a lot of staff cuts. So the local executive are working really hard to push for the campaign, organizing members. They have people making calls. They're talking about this in their groups, in the different meetings they're holding. And I'm really looking forward to see the impact of them getting to this goal and then their next campaign, because we're talking about school board local that could be in bargaining as soon as August 2026.
Now invite Chloe to respond to the same question.
So other than our wage win, which again, one of the biggest for the Ontario post-secondary sector, our members also got increased mental health supports in our contract with 85% coverage, which is huge when we are still facing a staffing crisis in terms of shortages and the ongoing pressures in our post-secondary sector. That was a huge win for us and for our members. From our coordinated bargaining and our organizing, I would say the solidarity is our biggest win. We have a sense of camaraderie and trust and community that we didn't have before. Our union office has opened up more. It's not a place just where you go when you get in trouble, but you show up just to talk to someone or to ask a question or to share an experience. We're noticing at our general membership meetings, we're having more engagement, more meaningful conversation. We're getting more, what's the right word? We're getting very genuine experiences from our members about their time at work and in their personal lives. We have found that in working with the employer, we feel empowered when we are in our union management meetings to stay as not just diligent, but as strong and motivated in these meetings as we were in bargaining, because we know that our membership is not only still paying attention, but still showing up. And they're still wanting to see their voices escalating to the employer and to the community They still want to know that they're being heard and then that their work matters, that the 7 weeks that we were all out there together really meant something, because it has definitely deeply affected all of us in a lot of ways. But it really did create a sense of solidarity between all of us that is very comparable to a family. And union siblings is absolutely true in this context, because it was a very uncertain time for many of us. And that level of trust to know we're taking this collective risk together, but we're still showing up for one another. And in the hallways, like, we all wear our blue uniform, and when we see another blue uniform, we're saying hi, we're smiling, we're showing up for each other. And in our new executive team, a lot of us are newer. That participation stemmed from that experience. I was a general member during our strike organizing and during our strike, and that fueled my motivation to become part of the executive, to continue that organizing and that plan, act, evaluate cycle, because it's important during the preparing for strike and strike readiness, but after as well. Once your collective agreement is ratified, your work continues, and to keep that momentum going is really important.
Those are all, I share all those sentiments so much. I'll just add that I think the biggest thing that we learned was that organizing works, and that it's really important to stay committed to that, to an organizing method, and that the kind of unity that we built, and then the resulting successes and improvements that we achieved to our workplace, need to be built on more broadly. So this is a good opportunity, I think, to plug the Worth Fighting For campaign in the social services sector, for members that are listening from the social services sector, that that the aim of the campaign is to increase sectoral coordination around bargaining dates and unified demands to come out with an improved uh, wage situation that benefits from the kind of reopeners that most of us didn't get around the wage restraint legislation of 124. So if you haven't heard about it, and please look for it on CUPE Ontario website, Worth Fighting For campaign.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I do have one last question. It's a very brief one, I promise you. So, what are the recommendations or advice that you would give to our listeners who are interested in building power in their locals?
I'll go first just because my mic is still on. But I think it's what we've heard so far is get serious early. You need a year before your expiry of your contract to begin those steps of strategic planning. Absolutely, if you're in Ontario, taking advantage of the resources of the Building Power Initiative is an incredible opportunity, and to begin to build a strategic plan. Resources such as getting involved in the Worth Fighting For campaign is potentially like magnifies your bargaining power, you know, depending on the capacity of all of us to unify and make that campaign what it really ought to be. Um, and also seeking out other resources. The online training program, Organizing for Power, that trains in the Jane McAlevey method, is a really important resource. It's annual, but there's lots of folks in CUPE who have a lot of training in the methods, and reaching out to each other, to locals that you know are employing those methods. We have to help each other out. We have to communicate and support each other to integrate those methods, and to stick with them. It's not easy work, but it is so rewarding.
One of my first recommendations would be to show up. That goes for general membership meetings, any sort of union engagement, ally engagement. For us, that was on campus in the previous year. Western had multiple labor actions. They had the PSA C610 on strike earlier that year. The previous fall was our power plant workers. We showed up for them and they showed up for us. It's experiential learning opportunities will go extremely far for any union leadership or member. Showing up to your meetings and whatever committees that may be ongoing or started for bargaining, just to get the information, or whether it be something that interests you, is really important. Showing up and documenting everything. So in the early stages of planning, documenting everything was so important because it gave us a reference point for example, our structure test, where we started versus where we are now. Documenting everything we were doing also allowed us to maximize our online engagement. We did start our social media, our Instagram, CUPE2361. I'll shamelessly throw out there if you'd like to check it out. It documents all of our fun strike stories, CUPE interviews as well. I'd really encourage you to check it out. And that goes to my my last point, which is make things fun. Being on strike and bargaining can be very heavy. It is a very impactful moment of workers' lives and the community. Having an opportunity for a little bit of relief from that went so far. From having our members have competitions for strike signs, who was the best, what one was the most funny. Having members share some of their pictures or videos on our Instagram so they could see some of the dinosaur costumes that they had, or little things like that. It is incredible the power of a smile or a laugh when things are that tense. And making it fun online with our allies as well is really what encouraged people to show up. Even if it was, hey, show up for the lunch and stay for the solidarity, things like that. It was much easier to feel included and to include others in that, as opposed to drawing them right into picketing and bargaining. It can feel really overwhelming. So showing up, documenting everything, and trying to make a little bit of it fun can go a very long way.
Love these recommendations. Mine would be if you are a local leader listening to this episode, I would say that the first step is to set at least a day together as a local executive team and bring in your national rep to help you facilitate a planning session. And as I mentioned earlier, we've seen that local leaders require at least 2 days to do this planning together and come up with a credible plan to win that actually responds to their bargaining environment. There is a lot of prep work that takes place before having this first meeting, from working on an agenda to setting expectations and making a commitment to one another to present and have a productive meeting together. And for locals who already have a strategic plan, you can set an evaluation meeting, like sit together, look at your plan again, do an assessment, do an evaluation. Because many of the times we get to the planning parts and we do the action parts and we don't always get to evaluate. And it's very, very important. I can't stress it enough. And the next steps would be to have the evaluation part built into executive meetings. For example, every time the executive get together, you have a standing item on the agenda to reevaluate your action plan. And for all the rank and file members who are listening to us, I would recommend that you get in touch with your local leader, tell them about these incredible stories you've heard from Chloe and Jess today, and ask them if they have a strategic plan in place and how you can get involved with it. So that would be my recommendation.
All right. Thank you, Chloe, Jessica, and Layla, for taking the time to join us today on CUPEcast. and share your thoughts and perspectives on how we can build a stronger union together. For our listeners, please stay tuned because we will be back with our closing. And we're back with the closing. Wasn't that a great discussion, Mo? My favorite part of the discussion was just having Layla and Chloe and Jessica sharing their perspectives. Layla, who's giving like the national rep perspective, particularly in like how she is supporting locals when it comes to bargaining and building power within locals as well. And then hearing the testimonials from Jessica and Chloe about how they use these tactics to kind of get their members more involved and more engaged and more aware about what's happening at the bargaining table.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed listening to their experiences. It was inspiring, and obviously, when you build power in your local, you're doing it in a way that transfers power to onto your membership. I think that's something that's so latent and it doesn't get said enough. Uh, but it's inspiring that through these stories you would see the dormancy of members or their shyness from action. And then when bargaining comes around or when there's negotiations around the corner, they propel themselves into action, and you would see a super majority of that locals membership ready to take action, ready to make gains, make wins, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this is relevant to us in Ontario, but it's going to be super relevant to our members and to the entire labor movement
Agreed.
across the country.
And as we mentioned at the top of the episode, this is a new political landscape that we're entering into, not only for us in Ontario, but nationwide. It's now more than ever that QP locals continue to mobilize and organize, like Mo just said. And as we mentioned, the election, as we're recording this episode, we don't know the results. And we don't know who's going to be the party that's going to be leading the country. But while we do not know the outcome, one thing's for sure, the fight for workers' rights and jobs continues. So we hope that today's guest not only excites you, but motivates you to build a stronger local. We'll leave all the resources about the 2025 Building Strong Locals conference in our show notes. Feel free to refer to them and to share them with your members. But before we close out, I would also like to put a little plug in and encourage our listeners to check out our January episode, Back to the Bargaining Table. That episode highlights how CUPE Locals 4948 and CUPE Locals 79 are building worker power through member organizing and engagement. I'm also proud to say from the day we recorded to the episode, like today, both locals have ratified their collective agreements with the City of Toronto.
Absolutely agreed with you, Brianna. That January episode gives our listeners an opportunity to hear about firsthand experiences of building worker power and collective action through the bargaining process. So I would also encourage everyone to listen to that episode and um, hopefully draw on from the lessons there and connect them to the lessons of this episode. But I would agree. And there we have it. We have reached the end of the episode. It was an exciting one, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have heard from all three of these amazing comrades.
I totally agree. So, for all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode, QPcast episode 43, Stronger Together. This podcast was written and researched by us, Brianna and Mo. We want to take a moment to thank all of the QP Ontario staff and our editor, Mohammed Akbar. Without them, this podcast would not exist. If you have future podcast ideas, please email us at cupe@cupe.on.ca. That is CUPECAST@cupe.on.ca. Please continue to check us anywhere that you stream or download podcasts, which includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on the QP Ontario website.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, leave us a review, and follow us on social media. And remember, the fight for justice is a collective effort. Together, we can build a more equitable future for all workers. Until next time, solidarity forever.